welcome to Virtual Concert Hall's live music channel. My name is Chris Au, and I'm joined today by the co-founder of Virtual Concert Halls, Dr. Anna Ospenskaya.
Chris, thank you. It's such a pleasure to be co-hosting with you today. Welcome everyone to our ninth and final chapter of Beethoven's Symphony number 6, and we'll be co-hosting today's show for you.
Absolutely. This is the part 9, and as Anna says, the last part of the documentary of Beethoven's Symphony number 6, written and narrated by Lawrence Rapchak, created by New Media Productions Worldwide and Virtual Concert Halls, and produced by Architects of Music.
And we want to say many, many thanks to all the collaborators. This incredible project was made possible by our shared passion for connecting musicians and the audiences in real-time musical performances, music films, and many other forms of musical events from around the globe.
And the third major section or panel, it's like a recapitulation of the first section. The same sequence of events, except that the main shepherd tune is now heard in a new florid version. It's like one of Beethoven's keyboard improvisations, where he would take a simple and then just spin out a new variation of. Also, everything in this third section now will stay in the tonic key of F major, as is standard in a sonata recap. But there's more to come. Another transition now based on and the fourth section is upon us. And it sounds like a perfectly natural continuation of what has gone before. And that's the subtle beauty of this finale's design. The 5 sections are all united by similar shape and material, but at the same time they are clearly delineated. So sections 4 and 5 practically mirror one another. 4 begins with an unadorned, straightforward statement of the shepherd theme by the celli and bassoons, which Beethoven then will extend harmonically like so, with a D7 chord to G minor, then C7 chord to F. And this harmonic progression really increases the momentum into the return of that grandiose, expansive passage. And another transition now based on the main theme. It's used in so many ways. It leads right to the 5th and final section of the finale. But there was something new in the grandiose Apollo passage, if you will, that we just heard. When it appeared in sections 1 and 3, with the radiant violins and woodwinds playing above it like so, the main theme was at the center of the orchestral texture. That was the form of the theme in the first section, and in the third section it was the florid variation. But now, as we near the end of the work, and this splendorous passage returns in the 4th and 5th panels, the main tune is not heard. Instead, underneath the shimmery texture, the celli and bass play a series of majestic rising triads. This wide span of slow-moving harmonies creates a majestic, almost solemn effect as we approach the ending. And now the 5th section. It mirrors exactly the sequence of number 4, except that the shepherd's tune with which section 4 began, is now heard in its florid version. And this flowing motion now will continue through this section. The harmonies will proceed as before. And when we reach the final grand peroration again, with the rising cello and bass, Beethoven now extends it through a new progression of harmonies. And as this exalted music soars over us, there is no mistaking its spiritual quality. And the coda. The flowing motion has stopped, and now the strings, in simple chorale voicing, intone the shepherd's tune, transformed now into a gentle prayer of thanksgiving. And as it rises, there is that all-important subdominant chord, which has been so prominent in this symphony, especially here with its obvious spiritual association. The woodwind choir echoes the strings. Then there is a final expansive C-dominant passage, rising and falling in the cello and bass. Again, simple dominant and tonic harmonies. And you may recall that back in the second section, the vigorous passage work in the strings, this pattern, very vigorous. Well, in the symphony's final 5 measures, it returns. Now, a serene thread of sound that envelops the shepherd's call in the distant muted French horn. The eternal flow and life-giving force of nature. And at the end of his original sketch of this symphony, Beethoven wrote, Herr, wir danken dir. Lord, we thank thee. A word about the Disney issue, which accounts for the Apollo references that I made in the finale. As many of you know, the Disney studios included a very abridged version of this symphony, Beethoven's Sixth, as part of their adventurous 1940 feature Fantasia. And it's this sequence, the Beethoven, that continues to draw the most criticism from purists, as well as those who seem concerned about not agreeing with the purists. I think that the Disney artist's conception and rendering of this music is utterly enchanting and unerringly appropriate to the spirit of the music. When you consider that, the first, Beethoven himself embraced using his music to illustrate things, brooks, specific birds, thunder, wind, and rain. And second, the fact that Disney's setting of the action in ancient Greece, with the countryside populated with mythological creatures, including the gods of Mount Olympus, who interact with the local shepherd lads and lasses, it's entirely consistent with the preoccupation of 18th century society with the legendary Arcadian phenomena, which was a natural outgrowth of the Enlightenment and the Romantic reaction against the Industrial Revolution. And Beethoven was part of all of this. And part of the charm and the childlike innocence of Disney's setting is the way in which his artists absolutely captured, they caught the music, the flow, the sweep, the intimacy, the details, and the overall ravishing beauty of this music in their vision. The family of flying Pegasus that circle and glide down onto the surface of the lake, the kitschiness of the 1940s centaurs and centaurettes in the deep blue glade at night, and the way that lovely sighing motif near the end of the second movement was captured. The rainbow after the storm with the cupids and baby Pegasus sliding down it under the water, where we see the rainbow's base through the bubbles. Some of that clownish stuff, though, with Bacchus and his donkey in the scherzo is a bit much, doesn't really work that well. But then there's the gathering on the hilltop in the evening, Apollo in his blazing chariot, the setting sun, the shades of nightfall, the constellation of Diana, and the sliver of the moon that becomes her bow. To me, this is one of the truly great examples of the art of animation. No matter what you think of the conductor's way with this music, it was, after all, the legendary Leopold Stokowski and the Philadelphia Orchestra, and he absolutely believed, he was passionately committed, that this experimental film was the way to introduce the public to classical music. And back in the summer of my 11th year, when I came across the 2 LP set of the Fantasia soundtrack in our home, I put it on out of curiosity, starting with the Bach Toccata and Fugue. It may have been 1940s sound quality, and it may have been a scratchy old LP, but it certainly worked for me. I'm Lawrence Rapchak, and thank you for listening.
Wow, there you have it. The final part and chapter of Beethoven's Sixth documentary, narrated by Lawrence Rapchak, and as you can see, storyboarded by Frane Ruzhinovic, who we know very, very well, and also Fedor Ospensky, who we also know very well. What a fantastic collaboration.
Yes, and what an unexpected ending. Don't you think? With the reference to the Stokowskis and
Yes.
to the
I
Fantasia.
want to start
and-
there. If we can, if you don't mind.
You
I
want to
would
start
love
from the end.
I want to start from the end because it's the part that I remember the most.
It's the most striking turn in the
Yeah.
Larry Rapchak's narration of this. He goes into so many, purely musical details, and then all of a sudden opens up to the reference to this visualization of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. So, and what's striking to me, and I thought about this, is what would we think now? What would we think 80 years later? So back then, there were purists who didn't enjoy this, and there were people who did enjoy it very much. But what would we think now? Wouldn't we be absolutely impressed and flabbergasted that Disney would want to set animation to some of Beethoven's music, let alone maybe a Mahler symphony or a Bruckner symphony, or even some popular pieces like Rimsky-Korsakov's Scheherazade? Wouldn't we be absolutely just so happy for them to do that, right? We're so impressed now with the movie Maestro that features Leonard Bernstein and what he achieved or what he did, and we were just, everyone in the classical music industry is raving, go see the movie, it's amazing, Bradley Cooper looks just like him, etc. Wouldn't
Yeah,
we?
absolutely. To me, it's not a hypothetical. I am. I raise my arm.
Yeah.
I am. I'm absolutely fascinated with visualization applied to classical music or any music
Yeah.
for that matter. And as you can see, our whole team is participating basically in continuing that tradition from Disney and from
Absolutely.
Stokowski and of course Bernstein and all of those ideas of connecting the music with visual images and creating the storyboards of visual images to illustrate. To me, it's absolutely not only appropriate, it's a fantastic way to
Yeah.
combine the both. And thank goodness we have all this technology now invented and at our fingertips that we can actually do that, and at a fraction of a cost, which it costed back then for Disney to create their animation of the
Yeah.
Beethoven Symphony.
And the fact that Leopold Stokowski back then in the 40s, 1940s, about 80 to 90 years ago, was saying, oh, this is a great way to introduce classical music to the public, right? The public back then, who were probably a lot more educated about classical music than a lot of the public now. And so, how much more of a need do we have now to share this kind of music in an appropriate way to the audience?
Yeah, interestingly, we talk about purists and non-purists, and Stokowski was, of course, conventionally would be called non-purist because he wanted to include visualization, and it was one of the most academic orchestras in the world. The Philadelphia Symphony followed his lead, and they did that. However, I want to turn that statement upside down. And I want to remind everyone that music was part of visual spectacle from the invention, from the day one when the music was invented. It was part of the dance, it was part of the spectacle, it was part of the story, theater. And as our abilities to put out those visual story events, first, maybe in just small gatherings when we were cavemen. I don't know. But definitely in ancient Greece already we built, as humanity, not we, humanity,
Yeah,
already
yeah,
built
yeah.
huge stadiums for theater presentations. Music was always integral part of it. And I don't share the notion that music was playing backdrop part of it. I think it was a very active element when artists and creators gave it a chance to play a very active and very effective part of the spectacle. So now fast forward many centuries, then we have opera, we have even mass. It's a visual spectacle. Not only musical feast, and then fast forward to radio, and then of course huge shows with thousands of people involved with music, light, sound, and everything, and now of course television and so forth. We all know the history of it, and here we are. So to me, actually, the purest and more conventional approach would be to be in step with the history of humanity and how
Yeah.
we use music, right? Not to be against it.
No.
So to me, it's actually a more conventional way to approach music, to use music, to incorporate music and everything. However, the other opinion where, there are people who just don't like visualizations. We already know we're so far in our brain and neuroscience that we know that everyone has their own learning preferences, right? Some people prefer to learn by reading the text, others by hearing a narration, others by seeing moving pictures and all that. There's nothing wrong with either. And if there's someone out there who just doesn't want to see anything, they want to just listen, well, that's available too. Why fight?
Yeah, I like to think of this as there's two different kinds of audiences who would first of all be attracted to this music. Those who are attracted to the music visually and theatrically, which I think is a vast majority. The second part who I mentioned
Well,
would
I don't
be,
have that data, Chris, but
Right, right.
empirically, I agree with you. Probably more people would like visual
I think
engagement
especially
too.
in this day and age with the world that we live in where social media and television and movies, digital media has such a big visual part, even if you're not exactly a visual person, it's almost brainwashed into you to see
Right,
this
and
kind of
there's
thing.
probably a good reason for that. Because we wouldn't be creating so much visualization if that wasn't what we want and what the
Absolutely.
audience want. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then leading to that, so there's the big part of us, of the public, general public out there who go to movies, or they go to the cinema, or they watch television series at home, or they are on their phone or on their tablet or on their computer. It's a very visual world, and I want to also not understate the kind of big fan base for game music. Music out
Absolutely.
there that's composed for games, and a lot of them are actually very orchestral
Oh,
music
yeah.
scores.
Now,
Yeah,
that
and
comes back to my very first question. A long time ago, if anyone was watching our early programs when we just started this, I asked Chris and I asked everyone if you would like to please share your opinion on that. If Beethoven was living today, what kind of music would he be writing? And what kind of instruments he would be using? And what kind of genres he would prefer?
yes, well, we still haven't got an answer from anyone then. So but the question still stands. So for those who are watching, this question that Anna posed is still available to be answered, and we would love to know your comments, obviously. But since this is a discussion between you and I, then I would
Then you
continue
have to give the
on.
answer.
I don't have to, but I
Yeah.
choose to because I think it's a very important question to at least address. And the answer really, I don't know. Beethoven lived in a time when his struggles and his difficulties allowed him, and his world allowed him to write the music he wrote. And I think of a lot of composers nowadays who are writing for film, writing for games, strong, powerful, good games and good movies. And yet, we have to not take them less seriously as composers. I think maybe 50 years from now, what kind of 21st century composers would we be listening to in the concert hall is a really, really good question. The fact that, John Williams, Joe Hisaishi, who wrote the Studio Ghibli music, they were getting great concerts everywhere in the world, and they're getting Deutsche Grammophon contracts, and the people are rewriting and transcribing their music. And I think this is a wonderful way for people to get to know the orchestra, get to know concert hall, get to know the modern stage. And I also believe that going to watch a movie with the full orchestra playing the music is also a really wonderful modern way, similar to how people used to go to see the opera or they saw the ballet. And I think that this is all part of it. And what I love best is the fact that Beethoven, at the end of this piece, he just writes, "Lord, we thank thee." And
That's a
it's
very interesting thing, right? It's like Bach was basically signing every little piece, including the tiny pieces in the Anna Magdalena notebook, with his dedication to God and higher power. That's not very common with Beethoven. And I want to just bring this up that from there was a lot of course, research and a lot of search and historical evidence to actually crack open what was Beethoven's relationship with religion and everything, because he was raised as Catholic, but then the evidence doesn't support the notion that he was actually devout Catholic, because he didn't go to mass regularly. So the researchers concluded that he can't be considered an Orthodox Christian. However, he really had a lot of peppered through his letters and other his own writing. There's a lot of reference to some sort of religious beliefs, and of course he had a lot of development and evolution in how he approached and what relationship he had with the topic. But there's a lot of references in the letters which imply his firm belief in something like an ultimate benign and intelligent higher power. So this is very interesting that this particular symphony concludes not with the last note, but with that signature, Lord, we thank thee.
Yeah, and the reason I'm linking, I love that, by the way. Thank you for sharing that. And the reason I link that to music nowadays and with movies and etc., I think it's that music is a gift. It is something to be very thankful for because it allows us to really internalize some of these feelings and expressions that we couldn't really put words to. And people who do put words to it, like poets and writers, are, again, incredibly gifted because they can really accentuate and convey the deep feelings that people feel, but they don't know how to express, and which is why we ultimately need art. And so whatever means art is able to be created, art is able to be shared, whether it is in the movies, whether it is within games and seeing the art that is there, whether it is through television or movie music or anything of that sort where one can start to feel something should not be taken lightly, because this is something to be thankful for, that there is something that allows human beings to find expression, find a connection, find a way in which they can relate to. And I think this is just a very powerful thing that hopefully the purists will still adhere to, because it's not just about having the perfect interpretation. I think sometimes that can skew us from what is really important about music, which is a place and a space for us to feel human, feel truly 100% human.
That's golden words, Chris. I can't agree more. And what a better way to conclude our program for today.
Absolutely.
And conclude our whole series of programs, 9, in fact, in 9 chapters of the lecture and visualization dedicated to Beethoven's 6th Symphony, one of the probably more spiritually oriented compositions of that scope that he wrote.
Yeah, and really truly pastoral, truly a different a side of Beethoven that people may not be familiar or aware of. And so I want to give a big thanks to our team, Virtual Concert Halls, some of whom you already see on the screen, and those who are behind the scenes, including yourself, Dr. Anna, who put all this together, including New Media Productions, Virtual Concert Halls, architects of music, and of course the incredible Larry Rapchak for not only giving us amazing historical or musical context, but also personal context to what Beethoven's music really means to us and to him, and making it so engaging. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you so much. This is engaging and very personable, the way Larry Rapchak explains and shares his vision and understanding.
100%.
And I want to encourage everyone to, even if just browse and sample some of those films, because you will find this just so satisfying and so harmonizing, the way Lawrence Rapchak presents the stories behind and the meaning of the Beethoven symphonies. And for more of this kind of programming and to check what other things Virtual Concert Halls and our collaborators do together, please don't forget to visit our websites. You see them on the screen, virtualconcerthalls.com and progressivemusicians.com, colorchestra.com, and what else did I forget? Sounderspecificompetition.com. All of these websites carry information and invitations to be part of many projects which we do connected with music and musicians, and of course our daily show, Music and Musicians from Around the Globe. We present artists, concerts, educational and music film projects, and many other projects, and we invite everyone to check this out and see if you would like to be part of this movement.
Incredible. Yeah, well, there's so many things in our season for everyone to be a part of. And so make sure you check our websites. And with that, a big hand to everybody involved. This is Beethoven's 6th Symphony. Tick and done for now. And we'll see you all for part 1 of the next Beethoven Symphony, number 4. See you all then.
See you all then. Thank you for joining.
Bye.
No matter where you are or who you are, music connects us all. We started with a dream, but now we are paving the future. Welcome to the Sound Espressiva Global Competition. Fully virtual, yet bringing musicians closer together than ever before, now on a global scale. True live, inclusivity, diversity, connection, community, an extraordinary array of judges. Get noticed by companies all over the world. Prizes, scholarships, performance opportunities. Apply to be a part of the most exciting congregation of artists like nothing you've ever seen before. We guarantee quality and leave no musician behind. We can't wait to hear you on the virtual stage.